That when Jesus came to earth, he came to die for all our sins.
Porque todos, por naturaleza, sabemos que existe un Dios.
A Sunday school teacher was teaching his 5th grade class, teaching them about the prodigal son parable. And he asked his class, who was the most unhappy about the prodigal son coming home? Who was the most unhappy about the prodigal son coming home? There was silence, and a little fella raised his hand and said, the fatted calf. Do you know the fatted calf is mentioned 3 times in this parable? The fatted calf was a very select animal, very good looking, but this animal was set aside, fed a special diet, so that one day, at a very special occasion, he would be slaughtered and served to some great celebrity. Later on in the message, we'll talk a little more about the fatted lamb. Leo Tolstoy, great Russian author, said that this parable is the greatest short story ever written. It was written down by Luke, the writer of the Gospel of Luke, who was the traveling companion of the Apostle Paul. He did not know Jesus face to face, but he knew the parable from the other disciples, and he writes it down. Luke has a very special interest in all the stories that Jesus told. He wanted to emphasize the teachings of Jesus. And what is a parable? A parable is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. What's the foremost meaning of this parable? It's very simple. God, our Heavenly Father, has a heart for all the lost people of the world. Let's walk our way through this parable this morning. The first character that we meet as we walk through the parable is the man who has 2 sons. This man is not poor. He's a man of some stature. He has land, he has livestock, he has servants. And when his son finally returns at the end of the parable, he gives him a robe. And not just any robe, it's the best robe. This man has a closet full of robes. And if he has a wife, his wife has a closet full of shoes. And when the son comes home, the father says to his servants, give him a robe, the best robe, give him a ring for his finger, give him shoes for his feet, and let's slaughter the fatted calf and have a great party. You know, I was pastoring in South Dakota, and I was talking with the congregation after the service, and a lady came by, and I said to her, Margaret, you're the richest lady in Rapid City. And she jumped backwards as if I had spit her in the eye and said, what do you mean? I'm not that rich. And I said, well, Margaret, you have 2 sons, successful businessmen just like their father before them, married to beautiful women, and they all walk in the way of the Lord. Those 2 sons, they have sons too. They're walking in the way of the Lord. You have a daughter, and she's married, and both she and her husband, they're walking with the Lord. Margaret, you are rich. And she smiled and said, yes, now I know I am rich. Wealth is not always measured in dollars and cents.
Present us faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy.
con un gozo grande.
To the only wise God,
El único Dios sabio,
our Savior,
nuestro Salvador,
be glory, majesty, dominion, and power.